Right now, what we've done so far is we worked on the multiplying of polynomials. Poly means more than one. We've done binomial by binomial, trinomial by binomial, and then there's one or two questions in there that's a trinomial by a trinomial. Right? So we have that down. So, like I said, one of the things that we began with is this here, where we distribute through the brackets, and then we get 5x plus 10, right? So how do I then work myself backwards in this case? How do I work from here and work my way backwards? So what I'm looking for here, what do you mean? You okay?
Yeah.
What I'm looking for here is what's a common factor that the first term and the second term have in common?
5x.
5x.
5.
Just 5. Right? Because there's no x here.
Right.
Right? So it's just 5. So if I factor a 5 out, that's like saying divide a 5 out. I take it and I put it at the front, and what am I left with? When I take 5x divided by 5, what am I left with?
X plus 2.
I'm left with x. And then when I take a 10 and I divide it by a 5, what am I left with? 5x plus 2. So that's what we're going to today. That's what we want to work on. But they set you up for steps in order to do this.
I got one.
Yeah? What are you doing?
Honestly, got there. We just got back.
Okay. The page is still down there?
I don't know which it is.
Okay. All right. So what I want to do then, common factors. We use the term greatest common factor. What the greatest common factor is a number that goes into everything that you're looking at. For example, what's the greatest common factor between 12 and 16? What is the largest number that goes into 12 and into 16?
4.
4. That's your greatest common factor. That's what they refer to as the greatest common factor. So today you're going to spend the majority of your time looking up greatest common factor. Now, the numbers are the easy part. It's when we introduce variables. So I'm going to show you an example. I have 3x squared plus 9x, let's say. And I ask you, okay, what is the greatest common factor here?
3x.
3 what?
X.
3x. When I divide 3x squared by 3x, what am I left with?
X plus 3.
Okay. No more. Hand up, because you're jumping ahead of what I need right now. When I take 3x squared and I divide it by 3x, what am I left with?
X.
What is it? Just x. Okay, well let's write it down. I don't know if that's right yet, but I'm going to write it down there. Now when I take 9x and I divide it by 3x, right, what am I left with? 3?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so now, how do I check and see if this is right? Multiply it through. Is 3x times x 3x squared?
Yeah.
Yes. Is 3x times 3 9x? Yes. I got it right. I've got the common factors for that. Everybody okay so far? All right. So now, what if I do this? I'm going to okay. So, looking at the numbers, what's my greatest common factor with the numbers?
3x squared.
No, just the numbers. Again, you guys just gotta be patient here. What is my greatest common factor between 3 and 9? 3 goes into both. We agree? Okay. What about x to the 4th and x squared?
X squared.
X squared? You sure it's not x to the 4th?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are sure? Okay? When I look at variables, I always take the smaller one. Okay? I take the smaller one for my greatest common factor. So in this case, you're right, it is x squared. So now, I take it away. I always say take it away. I don't mean subtract. Okay? Poor terminology on my part, but what I mean is I'm factoring it out. But when I use the word factor, sometimes I get blank stare. What I'm doing is I'm dividing it out. Okay? So I'm going to divide it out of here. So 3x to the 4th divided by 3x squared. Well, what's 3 divided by 3? 1. What is x to the 4th divided by x squared?
X squared.
X squared. Plus 9 divided by 3? 3. X squared divided by x squared?
Nothing.
Yeah.
One.
What is it?
One.
Martin?
One.
1. Right? And divided by itself is 1. So I don't even have to put it in there. So now let's check and see if we've got this right. 3x squared times x squared is 3x to the 4th. 3x squared times 3 is 9x squared. Yes, awesome.
For the 3x squared times x squared, do you add the exponents or
We did a whole unit to start this year on exponent laws. Right? So what do you do when you're multiplying variables? What do I do with the same variable, same basis? What do I do with the exponents?
add?
I add. That's right. Okay? And so this is why we have this unit after the exponents unit,
Okay.
because we have to know those. Right? And so when I said 3x to the 4th divided by 3x squared, what did we do with the exponents there? Subtracted them. That's how I ended up with x squared. Okay? So it's a little bit confusing right now with the variables themselves. I'm going to use an example that they have in the book here. So I actually prefer you don't look at the book just yet. All right, I want to factor this. Again, factor means basically take it down to its smaller, my smaller polynomial. One of the things that is similar to this that you have done is reduce fractions. Right? You've done this before. What is 4/6 in its lowest form? What is it? 2/3. What did you find? You found the greatest common factor that went into 4 and you went into 6. You've done this already. You've done this. The only thing I'm adding to it now is the variable part of it, which is, I get, a little more confusing, but that's the same thing. I am doing exactly that. I am making something smaller. Okay? So, having said that, then, I look at 12, 28, and 8. What is the largest value that goes into 12, 28, and 8? 4. 4. Does 4 go into 12?
Yes.
How many times? 4 go into 28?
Yes.
How many times?
7.
And does 4 go into 8?
Yes.
How many times? 2. That's right. So I know 4 is my greatest common factor with the number. Now looking at it, is there an x in each of the terms? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
there is. There is, right? Okay? So what is the one that I could divide out of each of them and not end up with a decimal? Yeah, basically a decimal, but
X
x squared. So what did I just finish saying less than 2 minutes ago? When it comes to variables, you take the smallest one, the smallest exponent there, right? So let's take an x squared out of there. Okay? And then I've got y squared, and y cubed. What is the smallest one there? Y. Alright, so now I am dividing 4x squared y out of this guy here. So what's 12 divided by 4? 3. X to the 4th divided by x squared? X squared. Y divided by y? Just 1. It's something. It's 1. Right? We don't want to say nothing because if it was 0, then I would put 0 in there and I'd have 0. Right? So I do have to remember that when you're dividing something by itself, it's 1. But I don't need to put the 1 in there. Right?
You just put a Y?
No, absolutely not. Because it's not y, it's 1.
Oh.
Alright? Okay, so now subtract. 28 divided by 4 is 7. X cubed divided by x squared is x1. Very good. And y squared divided by y is y. Exactly. Plus. Okay? 8 divided by 4 is 2. X squared divided by x squared is 1. Y cubed divided by y is y squared. I have just factored that. Okay? So my greatest common factor in these three terms is what? What is it? 4. Nope. What is it?
4x
my
squared
greatest?
y.
Martin?
4x squared y.
4x squared y. That's my greatest common factor. Okay? All of that is considered a factor of the original trinomial. Questions? Yeah, Brock.
How do you get Y squared from Y cubed and Y?
So if I go y cubed divided by y,
Oh, okay, sorry, I thought it was Y squared. That's right.
Yeah. This guy here.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay? Alright, next question.
Did you record this one?
I'm working on it, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're doing it right now.
I know, but Carl needs to go back and watch
Okay. It is being recorded.
it.
Okay. Now. I want to. That should take you up to the end of 6, 7 basically. Number 8. Alright. So this is something that's different that you haven't seen or done before, this next step. But I'm going to show it to you right now. And that is this. Okay. Theoretically, how many terms do I have there? 2. I just have 2 terms. Right? I have x times x plus 2, that's 1 term. And 4 times x plus 2 is a second term. Because they're separated by the plus sign. Okay so far? Yeah. Okay. What's the common factor between the two? What do each of those 2 terms have? Just 2. Okay. So now, what are the 2 terms right here? What are they? Look. Good. Yeah. I'll send her in about 10. We're just doing something pretty important right now. Okay. Danielle, Sinclair, 10 minutes. We're done. Okay, so my question to you is this. If I ignored this guy right here, what are my terms? X and x plus 2, right? You agree?
Yeah.
What about the second one?
4 and x plus
4 and x plus 2. So remember what I just asked you, right? What is the one term that's common in both? X plus 2. That's exactly right. So, does everybody see that?
Yeah.
They each have an x plus 2 in it, right? So now I'm going to factor an x plus 2 out. So I'm going to take that x plus 2 and move it to the out. Just like that. Okay? Now I'm going to set another bracket in here, just like that. So when I take x plus 2 away from this, what am I left with? X. And when I take it away from this, what am I left with?
4.
Plus 4.
Huh.
Alright? Now I want you to think about something. Think about this. What did we do for the last 2 days?
Oil.
I have binomial by a binomial, right?
This is new.
Which
Foil.
could use FOIL or
Yeah.
my other method, which was take x times x plus 4, and then take 2 times x plus 4, and then multiply it through. Well, what did I start with? I started with that there. Okay? So I'm teaching you now to work backwards. To work backwards so that I can get to this from that. Okay? So far so good. Like, that's where we're going. That's where we're moving to. This is called factoring. And we want to be able to factor very well. It is probably the single most important tool that you'll learn in grade 10 that will aid you in grade 11 and in grade 12. You have to use it all the time in both those classes, in both those grades. Applied or pre-calc, you do so much factoring over and over and over again. So we got to hit it hard here, and we got to make sure we know what we're doing. Okay? So basically what I did then is yesterday, I would have went from here to here, multiplied it through, and got my answer at the end, right? Well, let's just have a look at this. If I start with that's what I would have got as my final answer yesterday. When I took x plus 4 times x plus 2, I would have got that. So now I have to figure out, well, how do I go backwards? How do I go backwards? Well, I'm going to show you. It's actually a lot simpler than you think. Because I have a trinomial, and I have a 1 in front of my first term, which is x squared. I put 2 sets of brackets here. I'm going beyond. I'm going into what we need to do tomorrow. Okay? What are the factors of x squared? And?
Squared.
No.
One.
What is it?
Oh.
X and x, right? 2 x's. That make sense? So what are the factors of x squared?
X and
X and x. And when I do FOIL, what's the first thing that I do? X times x, which gives me x squared, right? So far, so good? All right, here's my next question to you now. Look at that 8 on the end there. What 2 values do I multiply to get 8? To add to give me 6?
2 and 4.
2 and 4? You agree? What 2 values do I times and add to get the middle term? What are they? 2 and 4. And they're both positive. Looky there. Okay? So that's what we're going to. So your day today is just basically find common factors, that's your day today. Alright? But tomorrow, or 5.3, is we need to start looking at this and going to here in order to get the full factoring done. Okay? Yes, awesome.
So how did you know that it was a binomial?
How did I know what was a binomial?
Like the answer was gonna have 2 sets of brackets rather than 3 or something?
Because there's a 1 in front of this. I'll show you, I'm gonna show you, just give me a few minutes and I'll keep it going, okay? So, but I guess, anybody right now have questions? I know there's a lot, but this is a big intake here today. Alright? We okay so far? Guys, heads up? Alright. So that'll take you through 8 and 9 today. I'm going to leave it at that. So I want to look now. I'm going to show you. Okay, I need quiet in here, please. I'm going to show you 2 methods. The first method is when the trinomial has a 1 in front of x squared, what I just did. I'm going to show you that again. And then I'm going to show you when there's another value in front of that x squared. Okay? So I'm gonna show you 3 types of questions. And that'll be it. All that you need to know are these 3 types of questions. Okay? So question number 1. X squared plus 12x plus 27. Alright. I have a trinomial. You agree? What's the value in front of the x squared? 1. So I need 2 sets of brackets. The easy question is, what are the factors of x squared? It's an x. Everybody understands that? And again, the first part of FOIL is x times x. That's how I get the x squared. What's the last part of FOIL? Multiply the last in the brackets, right? Well, what does that end up giving me? 27.
9.
So what are the 2 values of 27 that I multiplied together that will add to give me 12?
9.
Grace, you got her?
Yeah.
9 and 3.
Doesn't matter
And
what.
both of them are positive because 9 times 3 gives me 27. And now, I've been telling you this. Just wait, just a second. I've been telling you this. This is how I get there, right? Well, why? Nobody's asking me the question why. Why does it have to add to give me the middle number?
Because it's
Just wait, just wait. Anybody want to ask that question?
I do.
Why?
I asked that
Why?
one. You think no?
Okay, so here's why. What is FOIL? First, you agree? So x times x, which is x squared, right? Outside, which is x times 3, which is 3x. Inside, which is 9x. And last, which is 27. And then what are you supposed to do next? Add the like terms, which is 3 and 9. 3x and 9x, which gives you the sum. So that's why I do that. Okay? You following? You missed a couple days. You following? Yeah? Grace, go ahead.
Does it matter where 3 and 9 is? Like,
No.
okay.
3 plus 4 and 4 plus 3 mean the same thing, don't they?
Yeah.
Right? That was your question too?
Same question.
Okay. How are we making out? We okay? Alright? Can't get worse. What do you mean? You don't get this?
I do. I can only get it better, so that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Here we go. So I'm gonna test you. I'm gonna test you now. Okay? I'm gonna test you now. Try this out. Okay. So what have I done different here?
Oh.
Put a negative in there.
I'm just getting used to adding.
Roll. Okay. So, what's the first thing I need to establish? What's in, no,
Bracket.
1. What's in front, right? And as long as it's a 1, I can approach it this way. Alright, so I'm going to put 2 sets of brackets because I know it's a 1 in front of that x squared. So what are the factors of x squared?
X and X.
X and x. Alright, here's where it becomes a little bit more tricky. What is my last term?
Negative 6.
-6. Very important to know. So here's what I do. I'm just going to list. What are the things that I multiply to get -6?
Negative 6 and 1.
-6 and 1, sure.
Negative
3 and 2.
Two and negative 3.
-2 and 3.
1.
1 and -1.
Negative 1 and 6.
And 1 and 6. So far so good?
Yeah.
Okay. Which of those factors do I add together to get myself, what's that value right there?
Negative 3.
-1. Emma?
Negative 2 and 3.
Emma? No, you said it right. You didn't.
Oh, yeah.
-3 and 2. So Emma, here's what I do. -3, add 2. You got it right, Emma. Pardon?
Yeah, because it's a negative.
Hands up. Hey? How many of us followed that?
Nope.
It's somewhat.
Didn't follow that.
Well,
I
wouldn't
just
have
don't
figured it out on my own.
understand why it's -3.
Cause that equals up to one.
Because I
Okay,
know, but not
so-
like.
Okay, so when I take the outsides, that's x times
Oh.
that, which gives me plus 2x.
Like you
When I multiply the inside, it's negative 3x. Negative 3x add 2x is negative 1x.
Okay.
Follow that? Okay, anybody else have questions? Doing okay? Yeah, I can. Yeah, go. Okay, any other questions so far? Sure, we can. Another one, okay. Here, I'm gonna change that question.
What happens if you put both the negative and the positive on the opposite? Put a negative on it right now.
Why does it matter if you know the one for two brackets?
I'll show you why, when it makes more sense when I put a number in front, and then you'll understand, okay?
Instead of x cubed, would you still just use
No. No, we'll get into that, I'll show you that right away. You actually don't do factoring trinomials, necessarily. Or sorry, where there's cube functions, okay? Okay, so can I put two sets of brackets here?
Yes.
Yeah. What are the factors of x squared? X and x. What are the factors of negative 6 that add to give me negative 5?
1 and -5.
What is it?
1 and -6.
1 and negative 6 plus 1
Yeah.
and negative 6. Does that work?
Yes.
Is negative 6 add 1, negative 5? Done.
What about the x? Or is that just the
What do you mean?
one or mine works?
Okay? What's going on? Okay, are we okay? Sort of? Alright. Now, I need to show you two more examples in which I'm going to just change the question a little bit. Okay, so now there is a value that is not 1 in front of the x squared, so I can't use two sets of brackets yet. But number one thing, make a note of this somewhere right now. The number one thing you do in factoring, make a note, circle it, big block letters. You look for a greatest common factor first. Look for the greatest common factor first. Before you do anything when it comes to factoring, look for a greatest common factor. Is there something, a value, that goes into each of the numbers? Or each of the terms? Okay? So that's the first thing that I look for now. And make a note of that, because I'm going to remind you over and over and over again. And grade 11, they come across this, and the first thing you say, take a look for the greatest common factor. Okay? So, is there a value in this trinomial here that can be taken out that is in all three of those? What is it? 2. So when I take the 2 away, when I factor it out, what am I left with? X squared
Minus x.
minus x minus 6.
Dividing it by 2. Totally divided by 2.
Brackets like that.
I'll show you in a second. Okay? So, does everybody understand that? This is what we started class doing today. Right? It's exactly what we started today doing, was finding your greatest common factor. Right? Okay. So now, I now have a 1 in front of that x squared, don't I?
Yeah.
So what can I do now?
Bracket.
Instead of brackets, what are the factors of x squared?
X and then
X and x. What are the factors of negative 6 that add to give me negative 1? Go again. Positive 2, negative 3. I've factored that equation.
Then you
This page.
Does it matter which brackets are
No.
gonna go?
That was already asked. No, it doesn't.
Right.
I could put the -3 there and +2 in the other one. Okay? Now the reason is, what's 3 times 4? And what's 4 times 3? Same thing, right? So if I switch these two brackets, it would give me the same value. Is everybody okay? Anybody not?
What's that two to?
What?
Two to
You just leave it there, yeah? That's a factored equation. It's a factored polynomial.
Can you go back to the second step and then see?
Which, this guy?
Yeah, and to the third. It's like how you got to the third step.
Get to here?
Yeah.
I got this,
Okay.
right? So so what I should have done is this. This is Kylie asked this question, why? That's why I did it.
Like no, like what did you do?
What did I do here? I factored this
The
guy.
whole thing. Like,
Like what we've been doing the whole class.
too many questions.
It's right here. Justin? What's that?
Oh yeah, I see it.
That's where I go from here to here, right? I did the same thing, but because I have the 2 in front, it looks different. You follow me or not?
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. Okay, again, we shouldn't be visiting. Hey, you can't be talking when I'm doing this. Because if somebody asks a question, you need to respect the fact that they need the answer. So when I'm looking over here talking, you are not talking on this side of the room, and vice versa. All right? We have to have everybody's attention here. Okay? Now, it gets a little more complicated when I have a value in front and I can't take the greatest common factor out. So I'm going to show you that today. And it is, do I have to do that today? No. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Okay, 24 is 83. So, 2x squared plus 11x plus 12. All right, now, this is what I'm about to do now. You're going to want to write down, so it's your example. You're going to want to write your steps down beside it. Because when you do these questions, you're going to need to see an example to do it. Because there's 3 steps to this, and it won't make sense to you right away. All right, so what's the very first thing I look for in every factoring equation? Greatest common factor. That's the very first thing. Is there a greatest common factor here?
No.
No, because the 11, there's nothing, right? It's 11 and 1. Okay, so I can't do anything with it. So the first thing you do, all right, and actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to just, this is in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, okay, in which a, b, and c are just numbers. All right, I'm going to show you why I'm writing that down right now. And that is, what did I have? 2x squared plus 11x plus 12. Okay, so what's my a value in this question? 2. What's my b value? 11. And what's my c value? 12. Okay, great. So we know that. So here I go. I need the product of a times c. Okay? So what I want is I need the product of 2 times 12. So what is 2 times 12? 24. So I just need the value for right now. Okay? So I got 24. All right? My sum is my b value. In this case, what is my b value? It's 11. Okay? And what I need to do now is find the factors of 24 that add to give me 11. I need the factors of 24. So what 2 numbers do I times together to get 24 and add to give me 11? 83. Very well done. So I'm going to write those right here. Okay, so far? Thank you. All right. Okay, here's where it amps up, we have to step up the focus. Now what I do is I rewrite this expression out, and without the 11x, I want to put the 8x and the 3x in there instead. Okay? So it's going to look like this. 2x squared plus 8x plus 3x add 12. Does everybody follow that? So all I did was replace my sum with my two factors. Okay? We all right? Anybody know how to understand that step? That's a big one. We're okay? We're
Yeah,
okay.
there's only one X with the 11, so you have to put two X's with the 8 and the 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because it's got to be 8x plus 3x to get to 11x.
You're not multiplying them.
I'm not multiplying anything right now.
Yes. But yeah, there's no
Yeah.
square because you don't multiply them, right?
That's correct. Yes, Andy.
Did you get 8 and 3 because the factor was 24, or did you get 8 and 3 because it added 11?
Both. I want the factors of 24 that add to give me 11. Right? Okay. So are we okay with that step? Because I'm going to show you something different here. Now what I'm going to do is I now have how many terms on the board?
4.
4 terms. Agreed? Yeah, 4 terms. I want 4 terms because what I'm about to do is put brackets around the first 2 and brackets around the second 2. Just like that. Okay? The first thing that we did today is learn about greatest common factor. What is the greatest common factor in that first set of brackets? 2 and x. Would you agree?
Yeah.
2 and x. So I'm going to take a 2 and an x out of here. Taking the 2 and the x out of there. So 2x squared divided by 2x leaves me with what? X, right? 8x divided by 2x is 4. Plus 4. So far, so good?
Yeah.
Again, we started class doing this today, right? Okay, I'm good there. We okay? Is there a greatest common factor in the second set?
Yep.
What is it? 3. So I'm going to factor a 3 out of there. What is that going to leave me with?
X plus 4.
X plus 4. Like that. Are we okay so far?
Yeah.
So again, I'm just using greatest common factor, which is what we started the class off today with, right? So far, so good?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to do the same exact thing one more time. What is the greatest common factor between this and this? Brooke? X plus 4. So I'm going to take an x plus 4 out, like that, right? What am I left with? Did I take x plus 4 away from this, Brooke? 2x. And what about this one? Plus 3. I just factored. That's all you know.
So then, where's the? Oh, never mind.
I'm gonna figure this stuff.
Yeah, well, how did you get X plus 4?
What is this term and this term both have? So I take the x plus 4 out of both of those.
Oh.
And what am I left with? 2x? 3.
Oh.
I wouldn't have got that answer. On my own.
Okay, so what, quiet please. What did I do from here down to here?
Changed a lot.
No, what did I do? What was it? I only did one thing.
Greatest common
Greatest common factor. Greatest common factor. What am I left with in each time?
The greatest common factor.
That's all there is. Okay. All right. So that is your final question that you have to, or your final skill that you have to be able to do. Is at the very end. This is where you tie everything in, right here, right now. You get it, one? Okay. Let's try one more on this, and then I want you to work for the rest of the day today on the greatest common factors. So again, be patient, be patient. What do we have here? Let's go. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so we ready to go here? I'm gonna give you one. Twenty. Okay, here it is.
How you feel by the end of class?
Okay, so I added in its track signs added in. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not doing this for me, so I need you to finish this off. All right. So what's the first thing that I need to do right now? Is there one?
No.
There's no greatest common factor, is there?
No.
Okay. Nothing goes into 2, 5, or 12. Nothing. Go in. So, what do I have to do first?
2 times 12.
No, not yet. Product is A times C. So what's my A value? 2. What's my A value is what's in front of the x squared, which is just 2. My C value is what? Negative 12. So what's 2 times negative 12? Minus 24. What is my sum? Plus 5. What are the factors of negative 24 that will add to give me 5? 8 and negative 3. Okay, 24's got a lot of factors, so I'm going to help it done quickly. Let's see. So I've got 8 and negative 3. What's 8 times negative 3? Negative 24. When I add 8 to negative 3, what do I get? 5. I get 5, right? So now, I rewrite it to get 4 terms, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, 2x squared plus 8x minus 3x minus 12. Questions? Okay so far? What was the next step after I wrote the 4 terms? Bracket the 4 terms, that's right. So let's do that. This one, it does have one step that's complicated, so I'll show it to you. I didn't mean it. Okay, so now, after I've got my brackets, I go back to what the very first thing I learned, which is what? Greatest common factor. So what's the greatest common factor between 2x squared and 8x? What goes into 2 and 8? 2. What goes into x squared and x? X. So, what am I left with when I divide 2x squared out? I'm left with x plus 4. Agreed? Does anybody not follow what I did there?
How do you get to 2 again?
How do I? 2x. What's 2x goes into both of these values.
Okay, and then
2 goes into 8. 2 also goes into 2.
okay.
X goes into x squared. X goes into x. Okay. So I'm going to show you something right away. What's common between negative 3x and negative 12? Very good, Rex. That's important.
What did he say?
He said negative 3. You do have to take that negative out, which means you change both the signs. Okay, so this is the one part that tricks everybody up every single year. I take a negative 3 out here, and when I do, what's negative 3x divided by negative 3? X. Good. What's negative 12, Katie, divided by negative 3? What is it? Plus 4. Alright? At this point right here, you know whether or not you got it right. Want to know how? Those brackets got to be the same. If they're not the same, you haven't done it right. They have to be the same. So at that moment, you can tell whether or not you're on the right track. The brackets have to be the same. Hammer.
Wouldn't there be a 3x? No? We can do 3x divided by 12. And you just get
All the X
negative
goes on to the-
Negative 3 times x is what? Negative 3x.
Put it
If
in
I
the
put another x here,
Then it'll be squared.
x squared.
And then 12 Latin.
Exactly. And I don't. Brock? Alright.
That is-
Okay, Brock. What's common between the two, Brock?
X plus 4.
Okay, so I put my x plus 4 in a bracket here. Okay, Juan, you following this step here? What goes in this last bracket?
2x negative 3.
And there's your answer. Greatest common factor, done. Jordan.
You put in the
Quiet.
x positive 4, then you get rid of that other one, and then there'll be the outside, and then the negative 3, then you put it into the other bracket.
Exactly right.
Okay.
Okay? Alright. What's the number one thing I have to remember? Greatest common factor. You see why it's so important? I do it twice here to solve this.
The first one's pretty hard.
Okay? Are we okay so far? Alright. What I want today, you've got 5.2 to work on, which is just greatest common factors. I want you to wheel through that quickly today. Tomorrow, you work on 5.3, and we will go over 5.2 and 3 on Monday. Alright? And we have a question?
That's, so that's like, that's what we're doing right now.
5.3. Okay. Let's get to work. I know it's a long class, but you need to get to work now.